Hey everybody, how's is? Welcome. It's a new Soul Care Sundays. Are you ready for the new opening? Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome on back again, everybody, to Soul Care Sundays. It's good to see everybody. My name is Jenna O'Malley. I am your soul writer, author of sci-fi fantasy with dashes of romance and nerdy references such as the Myrna Annals. We are hanging out here talking about mental health awareness this month, and I'm very, very glad to have a couple of friends join me. We do have a couple of friends who intended to join. They may step in throughout, but in case they do not, please also give them some love, including Sako and Heather and Michael and Mel Power. Please do show them some love. They may step in and join us later on throughout, but I do have a couple of friends sitting in with us backstage, including Rachel D. Adams. Welcome back, Rachel. Take a moment and introduce yourself.
I am, as it says, the bringer of magic and mischief. I am author of all kinds of supernatural and mythical creatures who have become shifters. And I also help out with AuthorTube and author support roles as I go along.
You're one of the people who I'm very thankful for who hunts me down every week, aren't you? Possibly. Honestly, to those of you who do track down the streams, whether it's on AuthorTube or whether it's all over on BookTube, because some of us are existing on both ends now, thank you for your dedication to that end of this community for sure, because that's work. That takes time. Thank you. And we also have in the backstage our friend Miranda. Welcome in. Tell us about you, my friend.
Hi, I'm Canadian, and I write young adult urban fantasy with, of course, witches and elementals. No shapeshifters or vampires as of yet, but they're on the books. And I guess that's it. Nothing published yet.
I was going to say, you've got books coming soon.
Oh,
not only do
yes,
you're going to get there. We are going to go ahead and say hello to a few friends in chat. Hello there, Kay, fellow Heart Breathings admin. Good to see you. Thanking you for dropping on by. Hello, Angela, also fellow admin. Good to see you, sweetie. So we're going to be talking about mental health awareness. If you have any questions,
I thought I kicked myself out.
No, you're good. I'm like, are there tech gremlins afoot? There apparently were. They are not welcome here. So if you have any questions while going along, do feel welcome to ask the questions in the chat. If you want to put a Q or a question mark in front just to help my poor eyes out a little bit, please and thank you. We do have a wrap-up question section at the end. In the meantime, let's go ahead and also say if you need to step out, because we're getting a little heavy on the questions, if you get what I mean, topic-wise, please take care of you. We are here to hug. This is a safe space. Again, trolls, this is a safe space. Rencho power people, you know what to do. I trust you. Question number 1. Do you have someone who counts as your person that calls you out on bad mental health days for your own good? If so, how do we find a person like that? If not, what would you hope to find in a person like that? And we'll go with Rachel, Miranda, and then me.
Oh, okay. Let me pull up my little pad here because I have to cheat. I do have those. I have my main group of trusted friends that I speak with almost daily, even if it's just on Discord or if it's on chat. And I have the hubs. Before we could be this open about it, though, we did have to have a conversation to let the other person know it's okay to call us on stuff, just do it respectfully if possible. Of course, like with my gamer friends and stuff, sometimes we are not as respectful, but we've come to be comfortable enough with each other that we understand that we love each other, and we're just like, yo, you need to calm down. What's going on? Usually, as long as you've had that conversation up front with whomever you've decided to trust, that is paramount. Because that way nobody feels upset. It's like, look, I gave you permission to call me out. Don't be worried about my feelings on that, because I would rather know up front, hey, I'm acting kind of odd. Is something up? Than the other, being silent and not doing anything.
Miranda.
Well, I'm pretty much in hermit mode. I really don't have a lot of friends that I meet up with coffee in real life. So I only have my husband. He's not the best. He usually brings out more negativity than anything else, but he does spot that if I'm having a bad day, he usually tells me, go to bed, go read, go for a walk, go spend some time outside with the cats. But I do have people I can talk to on the phone, text, that kind of thing, and that's mostly my sisters and sometimes my daughter-in-law's mom. But I try not to. I like to say I don't like to bother them that much, so I usually just deal with it on my own. But I do know coming to chats, like coming to sprints and that kind of thing really helps. Like some days I just need to listen to other people, even if I don't feel like writing.
It's the community. It's a safe space. You can come and sit and just be in our bubbles. Does that make sense? That lunch table feel of it's Agreed. Middle of the day. We've all had a bad day. Just come sit at my table and we can get through this bad day together. And Definitely. I even love that, to both of your husbands' credits, and Cheesecake Man's guilty of doing it right now. Cheesecake Man is also like, don't you have sprints today?
My husband does that all the time.
Don't you have something going on today? And it's they know the writing. It's like getting back to that writing, getting to the people I know who understand without me having to say what's going on.
That is important, because a lot of my friends, they aren't writers, so they don't understand that side of things.
Yes. And even the Cheesecake Man enjoys writing and has a creative side to him, hence the name of his company, Cody's Creative Cheesecakes. But it's not this. Even if they have a different kind of craft, they still don't quite understand. They get it, but they don't. So definitely good points all around. What are 3 things you do daily for your own mental health that are non-negotiable? Like you can't miss them, even on those busy days, those chaotic days. I think sprints is sometimes part of it. Is there anything else?
I always try to take breaks. Since getting the melanoma, I've got to take breaks or else I'll get double vision anyway. But also just, I used to feel guilty about stepping away and not doing something productive at all times. And I had to break myself out of that. So recently I've made it a point to go outside and get some fresh air, walk outside and get some sunlight when I can, especially in the morning times before I start anything. So that helps out.
My 3 main things would be reading during the day, if I can squeeze it in, a paperback, ebook, whatever, even if it's just going back and reading my own without trying to edit, which is next to impossible. Music is on practically 24/7. It used to be classic rock, but thanks to YouTube, I found a lot of Viking type music and Celtic music, Scottish music, all that is just, since I've discovered YouTube, thanks to the Hardys, it's been an eye opener because 5 years ago I was scared to go on YouTube. But anyhow, just like Rachel, going outside more so when the weather's nice, because winters in Canada, let's just say some days the cats are on their own. They can eat the snow because I'm not going out there because a lot of time I can't. I never really thought of sprints. Like I try to get to at least one sprint a day, and candles, and I try to journal, but some days it's not as good as others.
I was going to say, some days I'm better at it than others. I'm guilty of being in the process of learning that thing, that it's okay to step away and not freak out. Thanks, Rachel, for the reminder.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten into like candle making recently, and
Nice.
it's addicting.
That's
Oh
fun.
my God. If you watch Resident Alien, and you know how the mayor is with his candle making room, that is so goals. I'm sorry, Cheesecake Man. I see another monetized hobby in the future because it's so soothing. I literally
I mean,
feel
and
like
it works. It works because, like, I just ordered from my friends. I just ordered a bunch of candles to go in book boxes. So,
yup.
if you can do it yourself,
It was going to be so much, because I do wax melts with my Kickstarters and things. It's going to be so much cheaper for me to go to the Goodwill or wherever, thrift an old crock pot, and crock pot my own wax. And literally make them smell like the guys I want them to smell like to a T.
right?
I've never
Rachel
even
gets
thought
it.
of using a crock pot. I just
Me
use a pot of
neither.
water and cans on the stove.
Resident Alien gave me the idea, a TV show. I'm like, oh my God, that's actually kind of genius. To a small degree, that's actually a little bit genius.
That's
So
one of the things on my list I've got to actually get into is the Resident Alien.
we highly suggest it. If you want a good exploration on the human psyche and get your butt handed to you by one of the funniest people in Disney voiceover history, do it.
Okay.
The guy who plays the lead character, he's King Candy. He's Duke Westleton in Frozen. It's like, oh my God. He's if you know A Knight's Tale, he's Walt. It's Alan Tudyk.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that was him until recently. So enjoy.
Oh.
Hello, Jody Jean, and hello, Angela. Glad to have you here. I'm going to fix some settings because I don't want Miranda's wonderful face to keep getting cut off there. There we go. Save, update, Firefly first. True, Firefly first. I keep forgetting that was Firefly.
Firefly.
Keep forgetting. For
a
the
favorite.
Win. In this house, that's sacred.
I haven't even seen it.
Misbehave.
You need to see for sure. You need to see for sure. So, how do you handle failure as a creative in positive ways?
Well, I mean, I just see it as a learning experience. I'm old enough now to see it for that huge L means learning, not just losing. And if I need a further catharsis for a failure, I write about it. That's part of why I write on Medium, because it's more of a venting and let me get this off of my chest kind of situation, instead of the creative side. But there are times too that I will pick a character based on how I'm feeling at that moment, and I will use that character and create a small story. And then usually, if it's not just my character, period, and just, outside of a situation, Tina can come in and play off of that. And she's like, oh, that's neat. So let me add something to it. And then we work through
right
the
quick.
failure.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm sorry. To clarify right quick, Tina's Rachel's co-author.
My co-author, who goes by her middle name Dawn on our books.
Sorry for interrupting. If you were still good to go.
No, that's good.
I'm sorry, Miranda.
Let's see. Failure for writing. I would say that just don't give up. I know probably 5 years ago, I wanted to try a series with totally off the cuff, just right as I go, no outlining, no plot, bullet notes, nothing. I even got my characters to be like in their 20s. I wrote about 15,000 words and did not like what this was going. I didn't like the not having to write down what's happening, even though all my outlines have changed by sometimes as easy as 3 chapters in. So I just put that away and started my Maple River, and it's flowing so much easier. So if you want to try to change your genres, go ahead if it works for you. If not, just stick with what you know. Sometimes I just take a break. It could be for a few hours, it could be a couple days, it could be a week. Just my advice is never give up. If you like writing, keep going. If no one else reads it, that's okay. And then you'll be surprised when someone reads it. I don't know if that answers the questions or not, but that's how I took it as.
I think your end message really did strongly, just because it might not be their book, like their tastes. Don't take it personally. That's a good point to make. That's a huge point a lot of writers at many stages overlook. For me, I keep going back to something. I forget who I heard this from. There's this old phrase, old to me because I heard it when I was really young. Failure is the tuition you pay for success. And I'm like, this drives me nuts because I'm Virgo.
But
I
it's
needed
true.
to fail for a reason. There's a reason why they call it Formula 409. It took them that many tries to get it right, supposedly, is what they say. So you need research and development, kind of like what Miranda was saying. Sometimes you got to get in the sandbox and enjoy learning how to be simply in the sandbox again. And I think a lot of us forgot that, like, when we were 5.
Yeah, we start taking care of ourselves and stuff, especially with our generations, that, you know, it becomes a thing where we're taking care of that and that's it, you know, and then we were like, oh wait, we were supposed to have fun? What?
Well, I think I can safely say this is true for both people on screen with me and maybe several people in chat. I was parentified by my parents as a kid. I was expected at 6, when I started driving, my mom couldn't drive. I was expected to be responsible to take care of her medical concerns. Like, stuff that was my dad's worry was on my shoulders at 16. Why? I don't mind taking you, but why am I the one taking care of you after a surgery like a spouse should? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are other people in this chat who are like, either if it was a parent or a younger sibling, even, maybe you feel that. So those positive ways are key. Mental health is a journey. We have a map maker or two on screen with me. This is a good analogy. Mental health is a journey. What is some of the best advice you have been given along the way? And what is some of the worst advice?
This what was a tough one for me to answer. I'm going to read off of this because, for one thing, I've never actually been to a therapist. I was actually talking to Kay earlier today, like, maybe I should do that. But, I guess was just raised to not want to do that. And so it's taken a while for me to realize that maybe I should. But the best advice that I did get came from a friend. And she just celebrated her 73rd birthday. she is proof positive that an old dog, I use that with permission. Actually, she used the worst term for it, can definitely learn new tricks. Her words, not mine. She told me that if I'm in a situation where something is hurting me, someone is hurting me emotionally or whatever, that I need to imagine an invisible bubble around them and move myself outside of that bubble, away from them, because in the moment, we don't know if it's their fault. We don't know what they're going through. You know, you need time to figure things out, and that it's acceptable to not be inside that bubble. That was like the best advice that I ever got for my emotional and mental well-being. And another bit of advice I got from television, because I was always watching television back in the day. So it actually came from Montel Williams. If you know, you know, daytime TV. For the best communication, listen without defending, speak without offending. So those two things were like the best.
The worst?
The worst? I'm thinking the worst that I got was actually from my mother, who said that I should just suck it up and deal. That another one of her gems was that she would prefer to be a pessimist, because then at least she wasn't disappointed. Because that's just how the world works. And so that's the kind of stuff that the advice that I got as a child.
I'm sending you a big old hug from my inner child to yours right now, my friend. Big time. Miranda.
Wow. I just have to say, like, wow, I couldn't have asked for better parents. They were encouraging. My dad and I, we went on numerous motorcycle trips since I was like old enough to actually sit on the bike by myself, like weekends away, kayak trips, camping trips as a family, everything that I wanted to do with my kids that I really don't. But anyway, back to the questions. My best advice was just to go for a walk. Growing up, I lived literally in woods. There was like a couple fields, but mostly woods. Within 5-minute walk, I can literally get lost in the woods, which a few times I did. It took me a while to get back home. And talk it out, even if it's just to yourself on paper. So I do a lot of self-talk. I don't tend to write it down in fear of someone reading it. So I keep all the negative stuff in my head and out through my mouth. And it's not my fault. I started going to counseling when I was in high school, but didn't start going on any form of medication till after this birth of my son. And if it helps, the medication, go for it. Stay on it as long as you need it. The worst advice, and it's sadly not from my parents, because they would say like how proud they were of me and stuff. It was the husband. He would say, just let it go. Get over it. It's just your imagination. You don't need the medication. So that kind of stuff. And yeah, so it's, I guess other kind of worse advice is just, it's all it's your imagination. It's the books I read. Just get over it, which you can't. Like sometimes the anxiety and the tension and the stress is just, you can't get out of bed. And unless you deal with mental issues yourself, you don't understand. Bingo. And I also want to add that with the whole mental awareness and mental illness, I'm a firm believer it runs in families. It could be hereditary, because I know my sister, she's in her 50s, and she's been going to therapists and been on various medications since she was 16. I have other cousins that are the same thing, which is really kind of bizarre because thinking back, we had great family connections. We were raised well, but it was just something in our DNA.
And I'll even agree with that as an educator to a degree, seeing what some of my students are exposed to. Like, I see how some of my students behave, and the second parent conference rolls around, I'm like, some things suddenly make a lot of sense. That couple replanted a tree literally right next door, didn't it? It sure did. It didn't fall far at all. And I'll also go on to admit, as someone who grew up in the household I grew up in, I see where addiction runs in families. My dad was an alcoholic. My oldest brother had a drug addiction that he lost a battle to. Dad was able to kick it. Dad had good reason. My mom said, you go back to the bottle. You don't have a home to come home to. My brother didn't have that, unfortunately. And literally, for my dad, wife and kids is what kept him from ruining himself with it. My brother, had he gotten the help he needed and the inspiration to do for him what he needed to do for him, he might still be here. Did he and I get along? No. But I still say what I say about him because the help was there, and he was just kind of taught, kind of like what was said earlier, all the negatives, he listened to them. And unfortunately, I've seen firsthand in my own family where that slippery slope becomes an avalanche. So please, if you don't feel safe in and of yourself, first of all, hugs, because this is a tough conversation. This is what I warned you about early on. If you just joined live, we love you. This is a rough conversation. We're giving you hugs, okay? Worst advice is normally somebody else projecting their garbage, baggage, whatever you want to call it, onto you. You don't deserve to carry it on their behalf no more than they wanted to carry it in the first place. Let it go. That's what needs to be let go, is their projections. They're not fit for your shoes feel. So for sake of readers, where would you prefer to place trigger warnings in your production process? There's a couple of theories of the right place to do it and how. How would you like to see it for your readers if you were to give a trigger warning page for your genre or your books in your genre?
I like the idea of putting a note from the author up front, and it not just being just a list, but like a conversation, something about, how these things came along in the book, but then also telling the reader, hey, this is in the book. So just be aware. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I completely understand that. I know that it took me a long time to figure that out. Actually, none of my books so far have that page, but I plan on reformatting, and kind of going back and just kind of looking over some things to be sure that everything is covered. I know that basically the main series so far doesn't have a lot to it that I feel like would be out of line for a regular urban fantasy. However, the prequel series, it does have mention of things that might be trigger worthy. So that's where I would put it.
Miranda?
Personally, I know this might sound negative, and I like your idea of doing a note from the author and adding your triggers there. I don't understand the reasoning behind trigger warnings. If it's a thriller, horror, slasher type book, you expect the blood and gore. So if you don't, and other things could also be involved in that, just don't read that genre. I write young adult
to a certain extent.
I don't really have any trigger warning things in my books that I can think of. There might be one incident that might get a little violent, but she survives. Maybe just some regular teenage bullying, teasing, that kind of stuff. So I don't know.
I think what we're both on here, this is part of where I think, and I'm saying this as an educator who teaches the history of the ESRB in an English class so kids understand why we can and can't talk certain story references in class, okay?
Right.
When I say keep it G, here's what I mean. Here's the history of why this thing even exists. Thank you to the YouTube channel Gaming Historian. I watch that video on the ESRB all the time. If you want to know more about the ESRB, Google the Gaming Historian ESRB, Entertainment Standards Rating Board. Books are the only industry that doesn't have it yet, that's to my knowledge.
And that's honestly what has changed my mind, was just the idea that, wait, we're used to this everywhere else. So, I just want to make sure that people are aware of what's in there so that they don't get halfway through the book and they get mad. That's my main thing.
I agree with Miranda. If it's a certain genre, in my opinion, slashers, there's no holds bar. If I'm reading a Kurt Vonnegut novel, I know what I'm getting. If I read Stephen King, I know what to walk into. They don't necessarily need their trigger warnings. I get it. But as someone who writes dark romance, who has experienced a traumatic miscarriage, guess what shows up a lot? And I would really like to know that that is going to be in that book.
Yeah. At least you can prepare yourself for it.
Bingo. 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 I literally changed the end of book 2 because I could not handle taking Rochelle's baby on the page. And I almost did it. It happens between books to a later pregnancy. Heads up, spoiler. Sorry, Rachel. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. She's about to read book 2.
But they have tons of babies, so...
They have a baker's dozen, so they make up for it. However, yeah, it's the traumatic themes. The unexpected crossing of subgenre traumatic themes. You are coming into the conversation because you hear us talking about stuff that upsets mommy, and she almost falls out of her chair picking you up. Hello and welcome to the party, Therapy Cat Moo. Literally, at schools where I've worked at virtually, she's been labeled a certified therapy cat. She's not certified.
So one example from one of my prequel books is that in the Vampire's Dragon, for instance, there's a scene wherein, well, for one thing, just from the Vampire's Dragon, a lot of people don't realize that there may be kink involved in some of those scenes. And there may be some what people would suggest or consider as possible abuse, or at least related to BDSM and stuff like that. So,
and if you don't know the culture, you'll mistake it for what it's not.
Exactly. So that's why I want to go back and reformat that front page. Author's note, this is here, and you may not have realized that.
For me, because ocean, not pond, that I stepped into, I'm putting a hidden page on my website with a QR code that says, if you want to look at the list of trigger warnings per book, and it's just going to be like, you can search through, and building that has been a nightmare, but it's going to be worth it because mine sometimes change from book to book. In book 2, we deal with someone who's into, word it this way, we're dealing with someone who likes to use her blood to power her magic. And it's illegal for reasons. In book 3, we're dealing with someone with addictions. It can change if you write series. It might change depending on which character is in play even. And that's why I'm like, maybe I should just make a track hub for this. Data nerd. So let me just put it all in one place. So if anybody asks, here, go to this link. It's there. And it'll be worth it. Now, some people are doing book to book. I might end up having to do both depending on what my audience wants for down the road. But I very much used to agree, you know, I know when I read Stephen King, I expect to have every expectation of a Stephen King book thrown out the window these days because he's written the gambit. And I've
And
read it.
Rice.
I've read a lot of Laura K. Hamilton and Anne Rice and
Yeah.
What's her name? She wrote Acheron, Sherilyn Kenyon. So Moo, please don't sit on the keyboard. Very little surprises me in those authors' worlds. If it's someone I'm rather new to, or if it's the first book I've ever read by them, I might want those trigger warnings without having spoken to someone's recommendation beforehand. I think I'll word it that way. See, good idea. One page with, yup. Is personal bleed avoidable on a good writing day versus a bad one?
I don't know. Like on a good writing day, I call both good writing days and bad writing days. I mean, good writing days when it comes to personal bleed. I wasn't sure how to answer that question. Like I believe my co-author and I get some of the best writing done by letting personal bleed happen. Because the writing can be cathartic, but also you're in the moment, you're full of those emotions. And so that way the character is more real to the audience because they're like, oh, wow, I can relate. I can't speak for Tina, my co-author, but it gives my characters a bit of closure and happily ever after to work through something that is similar to what I'm going through or have been through in the past. So on that level, it makes me feel good to give them something, even if I didn't get it in the past, if that makes sense.
It becomes writer karma, I guess.
That was a difficult question for me to answer as well. I'm not really sure how to answer it, but I have noticed that growing up, I didn't have a lot of close-knit friends for a long period of time. It was just kind of, okay, classmates in this one class. So that could be why the 3 series that I've written, there's all like 15, 16, 17 years of age, and they're all a close-knit group of friends, male and female, and they've been friends since forever. And they go through so much over the course of the books. So in a way, I guess I do. Some of the whole bleeding, what's it called? Bleeding, personal bleed kind of deal. So, and I would think on a good writing day, like when you're feeling good, sometimes those scenes will be easier to write because you're not all upset about whatever's going on in your life at that time. And I tend to not write on really bad days. So I don't know if it would be easier on bad days.
For me, it's a character to character thing. Some characters, Arya, my King of the Fae, are really easy to write for when I'm having a bad day. And he's supposed to be Mr. Walking, Talking Sunshine. He's really not. But he's very easy to write for on my bad days. On my good days, I want to write about my sibling characters. Some of my banter moments I write because I'm having a phenomenal day.
You think you write Arya because he can get away with anything?
But, well, he's called
Maybe.
the greatest charmer of all fae, who is older than Christ himself for a reason. He's been around for a while. He can charm you into thinking anything you want, and it is not what he wants you to think. It's very draining to write him, so I write him on my bad days. And
that's a good idea.
If you have a character that is more productive, because he's kind of mischief maker-y, I guess, is why he feeds on that. And bringer of magic and mischief. If it works for you, work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's Cineas is the similar character for me. I write him, especially if I'm on a bad day. What also happens, I find, is that because Tina and I have been writing these stories for 20 years. So we have when you think about timeline wise, what you're seeing is the original, the stories that happened. We have kept that timeline going for years. We're on second, third generation at this point. And spoiler alert. But yeah, the thing is, it's like writing the same character but in a different time period. Also, it depends on the mood that I'm in. And like sometimes there are time frames where on top of the world, loving, wonderful, and then there are time frames when he would just prefer to just be violent and take out people because he is a tasker, he's a special agent. He can get away with that sometimes. So, and then everybody else has to deal with his consequences because he's so impetuous. So
It's like Cineas has met Frey or something.
You would think they would make a good they would actually make a very good team.
I mean, we could
Somebody
write
would
a
have to reel them
collaborative
in.
crossover, you know that, right?
Somebody would have to reel them in, otherwise chaos.
They are walking chaos. All right, everyone. So today's conversation had its roller coaster moments. Are there any additional questions from? We've got more kitties. Oh my goodness. I have a question about
we
the
were all
kitty.
outside, but one snuck in when their daddy went out.
Oh, so I want to know which kitty this is here in a second. But if any of you on screen or in the audience have any questions to add in, this is the time. We're also going to give everyone a big old hug. Tell me about the kitty. Who's this one?
This one's Whiskey. There was 3 in her litter, born in the house because their mommy is an inside cat most of the time. But she was born over the late fall. So she could just spend the winter in the house. So she's outside now, soon to be outside full time, but she doesn't like going outside. She'd rather be in the house.
She's pretty. You have doggos, right, Rachel?
Yeah, I have one dog.
One. I have a 60-pound cat is what I call her. She's part Akita. So she doesn't say a lot, but when she does say it, it's loud.
They're like huskies with a mute button.
Yeah. And they love to try and cuddle with you, and they're very protective. And she actually does the kitty cat sidle up to you and whomp against you to get pets instead of being like a dog and like just coming up and looking at you like she wants pets. No, she comes up and whops against your leg and just stays there. So I've got a couple of videos of her trying to talk to me.
The cats are showing exactly what she's describing the dog does.
Yep.
In your bubble. And this is a good idea, actually. This would be fun, Rachel, because we would meet in between. We live about 6-7 hours apart from each other.
Yeah, that would be
could make that
a blast.
I'll talk to you about what I'm going to talk to Kay about here in a couple of weeks. We'll put it that way. All right. Any other follow-up questions from our audience? Or are we going to wrap up, wind down, send love, you think? Or do you two have questions to add?
None here.
What did Angela say?
Angela, Momgela, where are you, was saying about we could do the meet and greet for the 2 characters.
Okay.
Or even do it virtually or in person. We could make both work. And we know you got noodles. We love you very much. Sako, hello, it's good to see you, my friends. We're just getting ready to wrap up. We're taking any final questions and comments from the audience and winding down. if you're going to catch the replay, or if you made it this far in on the replay, go ahead and follow everybody else's channels. Give them some much well-deserved love on, please and thank you. And above all, if there aren't any other questions, we'll wrap it up, wind it down, and of course, see you in about a month. There is a somewhere. I have that link somewhere. I think Moo's hiding it from you, aren't you? Yes, you are. Over on my link tree, I will pull it from then. So if you want to join a future episode of Soul Care Sundays, then please check the link in the description box, or go ahead right on over that way. April is going to be April.
You're going backwards.
We're going backwards. We're doing the time warp. June is going to be Pride Representation Month. July is going to be per guest request on organization systems, planning, productivity, mid-year slump beating, and then August, per guest request, school years, and stationery supplies. There's way more planned. I kid you not. We have topics all the way in through December, and I'm going to actually be adding 2025's topic schedules when we're done here today. So thank you all for being here. Take care of yourselves. You've always been worth it. Bye.